Hi guys, so if you've been staying all the way to the end of my recent videos, you might have picked up on the fact that I'm currently reading the Stephen King novels in chronological order and giving updates as to my progress at the back end of my reviews. I'm currently halfway through Salem's Lot. That's today's update. But given my renewed interest in Stephen King, I guess it was inevitable that I would also turn my attention to some of his screen adaptations. And last week I delved into the world of Carrie a little bit, but not with the original film, because I've seen that one so many times. And I also thought that it would be quite a difficult film to review on a channel like this, because the original Carrie, I mean, it's up there with the likes of Jaws and The Exorcist. What new could you add at this juncture? I mean, in the future, if I desperately find myself wanting to fill out my Stephen King playlist, then maybe I'll attempt a review of 76 Carrie, but for now I just decided to go straight to the sequel and possibly the remakes. I haven't decided yet, because I've never checked out any of these other Carrie films. I've always ignored them. I've only ever watched the original, and I've done so for getting on 30 years. I've seen that one so many times. Carrie 2 The Rage was a ludicrous idea when I first heard that they were bringing it out, and I've spent 25 years ignoring it. It's got the exact plot that I would have predicted it would have without looking it up online. So we've got a teenage girl called Rachel. She's the half-sister of Carrie White, and at the age of about 16 she develops telekinetic powers. Oh, and she's getting bullied at school, which is useful because that means that in the third act of this film she gets to go around causing chaos and destruction and murdering people, similar to what Carrie did in the original film. This is such a 90s film as well. I mean, right from a really early scene, this is noticeable. There's a jock who is filming the backside of a female in the school cafeteria, but he's doing so with one of those really old school camcorder sets that nobody uses anymore. And this film cribs from other 90s movies as well. So there's a scene halfway through where Rachel's at home and she gets a phone call from some school bullies, and they're doing this whole Roger Jackson scream routine where they're intimidating her, but without telling her who they are. They're actually right outside the window, like banging on the side of the house and stuff like that. There's also a nod to Pretty Woman from 1990. So Rachel goes to the local jeweller's, but she's wearing like these tatty rock type clothes maybe, and a snobby assistant comes over and immediately tries to hound Rachel out of the store without even knowing how much money she's got on her. So in terms of the actors for this, we've got Emily Bergl playing Rachel. Now, when I was watching this film the other night, I was convinced that I'd seen this actress before in something, maybe even a whole bunch of other horror films, but it turns out, no, I'd not seen her in anything. This actress is British. This was actually her movie debut. She'd only done TV work before this, and since Carrie 2 The Rage, she's mostly drifted into mediocrity. She does a few TV roles here and there, but, you know, small parts. She'll come in and do one episode in a long-running TV show, that kind of thing. I think her character in this is highly problematic. I mean, the actual performance is really good. I think Emily Bergl herself is one of the brighter elements of Carrie 2 The Rage. But when it comes to her character, I just could not buy that she would be someone bullied at school. I mean, with Sissy Spacek's Carrie White, it was instantly believable because just Carrie's general demeanour. It was easy for me to think that she could be ostracised and ignored, and I mean, she stood out like a sore thumb, but Rachel doesn't. She's just a normal girl. Yeah, okay, she's got this kind of emo look and vibe to her, but she's a good-looking girl. She acts quite normal, nothing like Carrie. There's no reason why guys at school would dislike a girl like this. The Queen Bees, maybe, because some of them look down on Rachel as being not of their class, because Rachel is from a broken home. She lives with foster parents in a trailer park. But how would everybody at school even really know about that, if you see what I mean. But in general, I totally just did not buy that Rachel would attract anywhere near the vitriol required to make her go off the deep end at the end of this film and start killing loads of people. At worst, she's an in-betweener type figure in the typical school social hierarchy, but she's no Carrie White. Also in this is Amy Irving playing the character of Sue Snell. So just to recap, Sue is the only surviving character from the first one, and they've brought her back for this because they're so desperate for this to be a really legitimate sequel to the original Carrie. They've tried really hard to think of who they could bring back, and they've zeroed in on this girl. So just to recap, Sue Snell was the girl who sent Tommy Ross to the prom with Carrie. Therefore she wasn't at the prom when it all started to go to hell, and thus she survived the movie. She's a school teacher in this who just happens to be in the same orbit as Rachel when she's discovering her powers. What a coincidence. But thematically, she's got no arc in this film. She's literally there to remind the audience that this is a sequel. And there are so many clues as to Sue's history, because the makers of this film do not trust you to know who Sue is. So you are presented with clue after clue as to where the character comes from. Call me a cynic as well, but I reckon they've made Amy Irving get the same hairdo that she had back in the 70s for the first Carrie. I'm just not buying it that she's kept that same hairdo, that same frizzy, unique look for 23 consecutive years. And how lucky. They just happen to be making a Carrie sequel and she's got the same hairdo. No, I reckon they asked her to get the same hairdo just so that audiences might look at this character and think, oh, I recognise her. She was in the first movie. But if you don't get who this character is from the hairdo, then there are other clues available in the dialogue, and there are some really unnatural lines spoken by certain people. So there's a moment where Sue, in her role as a teacher, is speaking to another teacher, and I think this other teacher says to her, "Are you sure you're not just reliving the events of 23 years ago?" And it's just an odd line to come out with, but again, it's another way of the movie saying to you, Sue Snell was in the first one 23 years ago, and look, how cool is it that we managed to get the same actress back? And just in case you are in the kitchen making a drink while this little scene is playing out, don't worry, because there's another clue coming up 5 minutes later when Sue is in her office with Rachel, and Sue says something to Rachel like, "Look, Rachel, I went through this same business 23 years ago with Carrie White," or words to that effect. It's like, can you please stop with these obvious references to the first movie that just feel so unnatural? Just stop it. But just in case you're struggling with these clues, you will get actual flashback footage to the prom from the first movie. At random times, mostly when Sue is in a scene, we'll get these clips of Carrie with blood down her face on the stage, and it's like, why are you putting that in there? None of these characters remember these scenes, and yet you're just randomly inserting them because, I mean, the desperation for them for you to know who Sue Snell is, it goes so far in this film. Sue decides to fill us in on some of her backstory, what she's been getting up to for the past 23 years, besides qualifying as a teacher. So apparently, after the first movie, she checked herself into the Arkham Asylum or something. It's like a mental ward that just happens to have the same name as the asylum from the Batman franchise. Why use this same name that Batman uses? I mean, I sat there for a couple of minutes thinking, so does this actually take place in the Batman universe? Did they decide to marry up Batman with Carrie? I mean, that would be a really odd match, a really odd bedfellows. I'm not sure about this. I tried to picture in my head Batman turning up at Arkham Asylum to interview somebody, and he looks into a cell and he sees the Joker peering out from behind his bars, and then he sees the Riddler in the next cell. And then in the next one over, there's Sue Snell from the first Carrie film peering back at him, and no, I'm really struggling to just put all this together in the same frame. It's just not working for me at all. But Sue's role in this film is just so inconsequential. There's no reason for her to be here. She tries to get through to Rachel and explain Rachel's links to Carrie and explain what happened back in the 70s, but Rachel's having none of it. She distances herself from Sue, and Sue's basically shut out of the movie after a point. And I'm about to go into big spoiler territory, if anybody's bothered about spoilers for Carrie 2, The Rage. They kill Sue off in like a random accident about 15 minutes from the end. So Sue heads for the party that Rachel's about to destroy, but Sue's killed on the front doorstep in a random accident. Rachel knows nothing about it, so this movie ends with Rachel not knowing that Sue has even died, and it's just a bizarre way to throw away this character who survived the first Carrie movie. The bullies in this movie are some of the nastiest human beings you will ever see in a high school type setting. They are so awful. So there's like a group of 6 or 7 guys, and they're all playing this game where they try and sleep with girls for points. They've got like a little book with the scores in. There's a list of girls and how many points you get for sleeping with each girl. These girls are all underage, it's said as well. Like, these guys are like 18, and a lot of the girls on the list are like 16, which would make it statutory rape by the American laws. And this is actually pointed out in the script as well, just to make it extra worse. But it's just deplorable how these guys treat all the girls in the school. There's one girl who really falls in love with this one guy. They have sex with each other, and then he dumps her the following day because he was only doing it for points. But then she is so upset by this, she throws herself off the roof of the school and kills herself, and none of these guys have any guilt about that whatsoever. Not a flicker. Like, all they're bothered about is the fact that somebody got some points out of this whole situation, and on we go. It's just unbelievable how they act after this girl kills herself. And this one guy, he's telling his buddy what happened. He's like, oh, well, you know, I dumped her the night after, and she got really upset, but I was saying to her, it's like, I didn't want a relationship, I was just doing the whole thing for pumps or something. I think that's the phrase he uses, doing it for pumps. He's just, he's one of the biggest dickheads I've ever seen. I mean, I know lads of, like, you know, who are in their late teens, they can be immature when it comes to relationships and things, but these guys in this film take the biscuit and then some. There's a scene where one guy is sleeping with a girl in a car, and I don't know if the girl knows this or not, because she's actually from the Queen Bee sort of brigade, and she's not the nicest girl herself. But this guy's buddies are nearby watching this act. They're all sat on the bonnet of one of their cars, like 100 yards away in a field, and they're all sat there with beers. And when this guy's finished with this girl in the car, he gets out of the door of the car with the girl's knickers and starts swinging them around, going, yeah! And the guys on the bonnet of the car are all like, yeah! And the girl inside the car's lifting her head up half naked, like, huh? Like I said, that I'm not sure if this girl knew that these guys were all watching or not, because this girl's a bit dodgy of character herself. But the whole scene, it just reeks of obnoxious teenage male attitudes. Come the end of the film, and I'm going into more spoilers here, but you're probably not bothered by this point. So there's like a conspiracy between like 4 or 5 of the guys and 2 or 3 of the girls. There's a lot of them who are against Rachel, like a good 7, 8 of them. And they've all come up with this scheme to pretend to make friends with Rachel, to get her to this party, which just happens to take place in this like $5 million mansion. It's like celebrity lifestyle mansion. God knows who owns this house, but it's something. But when Rachel gets there, what they do is they play a videotape of Rachel having sex with her boyfriend on all these screens, so like the 100 people at the party can see it, and Rachel's really embarrassed, and she just wants the ground to swallow her up. And then all the bad characters start going up to Rachel and calling her a skank, and telling her that the sex wasn't actually a love thing, it was just for points. And then they say to her that, oh, did you know your friend who killed yourself, what a skank she was? Yeah, that was just for points as well. They're being absolutely deplorable. And I think the movie's making these characters so nasty so that when the comeuppance happens, then it's going to be more satisfying for the viewer. Because obviously it's just after this that Rachel starts destroying the place and so forth. But it just makes the whole film have a kind of rape revenge vibe to it. And I'm not really into those sorts of films. The way they did it in the original, though, was so much more believable. It felt like a real school. You know, there was only one bully in on the prank in the first film, and that was Chris Hargensen, the girl. Yeah, she had a boyfriend with her, but the boyfriend wasn't from the school. So it was only one character behind the whole thing with the pig's blood and the bucket, because everybody else in the school had come around to Carrie. They only took the piss out of her at school as a kind of immature thing, but the minute that Carrie made an effort and went to the prom, everybody was like, oh yeah, well, we'll be cool now. Yeah, okay, well, yeah, you're actually all right. And when Carrie gets up onto the stage with Tommy, they get a massive round of applause. Everybody now likes Carrie. And yeah, okay, they start laughing at her when the blood falls, but that's kind of them slipping back into old ways by instinct more than anything else. I sort of see this big crowd as just immature and not always making the smart choices in the moment, but they're not a big group of nasty people like what you get at the end of Carrie 2. I mean, these are literally 7 or 8 people crowding round Rachel in a really intimidating way, and there's not a single good character in this room, because I mean there's lots of nobodies and red shirts, but we don't know anything about them. But the whole thing just isn't for me. There are some positives that I could talk about. I do like the love story between Rachel and her new boyfriend in this film. I think that's kind of nicely done, albeit the boyfriend is tricked into not being at the party towards the end. There's a great gag that I really enjoyed. So there's like this geeky guy who's not invited to the party, but he's still hanging around outside the gates. And when people start coming out of the house on flames, he looks at these people half drunk and goes, oh man, it looks like a bitchin' party. And there's a great final scare in this as well, which was brilliant, actually. I didn't expect it to be at the end of this film, but we fast forward to a year after these events, and just after the stroke of midnight, this apparition, it looks like, of Rachel comes in, and it wasn't entirely clear if she died in the scenes at the party. So I was thinking, okay, is this going to be a moment where she suddenly bursts to life and it turns out that she survived to come and then see her boyfriend in the dead of night, or is this actually a ghost or something? And I was just trying to figure this out when we get the answer, but the way that they've done it is actually genuinely terrifying. Like, I felt a chill go all the way through my bones watching this scene, and that doesn't happen very often, and I'm just a little bit kind of sad that this didn't happen in a much better movie. It's the sort of final scare that you get in those I Know What You Did Last Summer films, where it might not even be canon what you're watching before you go to the credits, but it was so well done at the end of this. So, you know, there are some little positives for this film, but on the whole, they just get the whole feel of a Carrie film wrong, really. But there wasn't really another Carrie film to be made, so who cares at the end of the day, I suppose. Normally at this point of the video I would show you a copy of the film I've just been nattering about, but I don't own Carrie 2 The Rage. I probably never will. I do not intend to buy this and slot it in neatly next to the first Carrie film on my shelf. Sorry, that's just not going to happen. Luckily, though, I managed to get this film without having to pay for it, because turns out you can watch Carrie 2 with an Amazon Prime subscription if you just so happen to have one, which I do. So I was very happy to pretty much get this film for free the other night. I don't know if I'm going to go on and do the Carrie remakes yet. I might do one of them. I might dip my toe in and watch one of them, but it won't be like a review that's imminently coming. I might take a few weeks off. But in the meantime, let's get to the bag of terror and see how I'm going to score Carrie 2 The Rage, or as it's actually called, The Rage Carrie 2. So they've done the title backwards for this, a bit like Hello Mary Lou Prom Night 2. Ironically, the end of this film does kind of set up the possibility of a third Carrie film, which would be a lot like Prom Night 2, because it's implied that maybe Rachel is about to come back as an apparition 1 year after the events of part 2 and you know, go around killing people as a ghost maybe. But this film did not do very well at the box office. I sort of knew that without even looking into it. This time I did look into it. So this film was, it cost 17 million, but it only made, sorry, no, it cost 21 million, but it only made 17 million. So it actually made less money than it cost without even factoring in marketing. So that's how much of a complete disaster it was. It was probably a very easy decision for them to not push ahead with any more. So the score I'm going to give this is 2 bloody axes out of 5. It's not a complete and utter disaster. Like I was saying, there are some things about it which are pretty cool. The main performance, the main relationship between the Rachel and her bloke. 1 or 2 funny moments, 1 or 2 gory kills, I suppose, but most of the film was kind of tedious. It's like 105 minutes, so many appalling characters. The story just did not need to be told. There just did not need to be a sequel to the first Carrie, in all honesty. So yeah, 2 out of 5, and I will see you soon, possibly for one of the Carrie remakes we shall see. Until next time, cheerio, bye-bye.